White Horse Strong by Ned DeHaan, the audiobook, made available on Black Box Online Radio. Please like and subscribe and consider supporting this channel at BuyMeACoffee.com. BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNed88 allows you to make a donation or contribution to help the show, and anyone who makes a donation will get a shout-out on Zodiac Monday. Chapter 7. The first thing they saw was the firearm. It was a black handgun, and Barry easily recognized the silencer from the movies. The man was just a little taller than Barry. He was wearing a white shirt with blue stripes, and he had streaks of gray in his brown hair. He had pale white skin and a facial expression that was just as blank. He grabbed Sylvia by the arm and pointed the gun at her back. "If anyone says a word, I'll kill her," he threatened.
"Robbie, what are you doing?" she gasped.
"You shut up," he commanded. "Now everyone, in the back room, do what I say, or I will kill her." Barry was the first to walk toward the back. Then Joanna and Martin quickly followed. The back room of the Red Horse Inn was lined with wooden panels, which had a glossy coat to them. There were 2 desks with papers placed sloppily. "Shut the door," he ordered. Joanna was the closest, so she closed it. "I thought you were stupid," the man now known as Robbie said.
"Robbie, what's going on?"
Sylvia pleaded.
"I did everything you asked. I love you, Robbie."
"I never killed anyone," he almost cried. "This was all supposed to be a game. I didn't want to kill anyone. I mean, that's just not me. I saw that guy, Emmanuel Inman, on the TV, and I was like, this guy, he could become some type of brilliant criminal. If he could do it, I could do it. It was all supposed to be a little game, just a game, but I didn't know it wasn't supposed to be like this." "Hey, look," Barry started. "Shut up," Robbie roared. "Shut up, Barry Albert. Oh my gosh." "Barry Albert, Joanna Skite, Martin Gill, I know you all so well. I read about the White Horse Killer. I read all about it. You, Joanna Skite. I loved you. I loved reading about you. I always thought you were so beautiful in the photos. You, Barry Albert, the lost witness of the White Horse Killer mystery. And you, Martin Gill, I read everything you've written online. I wish I had your ability with words." His voice was getting weak, and the tears were forming.
"It was just supposed to be a game, and it was working. I got Joanna here. I'm sorry for abducting you. I didn't mean to hurt you. I got Barry here and Martin here. Oh, I'm so stupid. It didn't work. You saw through it. It wasn't smart. It was stupid. I'm sorry. I wasted your time."
He pushed Sylvia forward and aimed the gun.
"No, Robbie," she cried too.
"Sylvia was my girlfriend," said Robbie. "I love you, Sylvia. She only went along with this because I wanted her to. I just couldn't resist. I wanted to be the one to create the cipher codes. I wanted to be the one on the news. I would never hurt you, Sylvia. I love you. I would never hurt any of you. I'm sorry again, Joanna, but I knew they'd come and find you. I knew it from the first time that I saw you, Joanna. I loved you. Did I say that already? In some ways, this is good. It's nice to meet all of you, for the first time, and you saw me. You saw me before, though. I was wearing that red mask. I loved doing it. It was so much fun. Oh, goodness, yes. It was fun. I buried another riddle in the cornfield. I knew you'd ask Sylvia where the cornfield was. Barry works in a motel, and he was a watchman. His instincts would guide him to her. I was right about that. Now, you might think I'm dumb, but I was right about that."
"Robbie,"
Sylvia started. "Shut up," he ordered. Shut up, everyone shut up."
"Just put the gun down,"
Sylvia said.
"Please."
"I love you, Sylvia," he said. "I love you all." Then Robbie turned the gun to his own head and in an instant he pulled the trigger.
"No!"
Sylvia shouted.
"No!"
She cried, then she fell to her knees. Barry and Martin took a step back, but Joanna knelt down and hugged Sylvia.
"Robbie!" she screamed. I I didn't know. I didn't know. He told me you were old friends of his. He said he was just having fun with you. I don't know anything about a mask or the White Horse Killer. He never said anything about that. He just said he was having fun with you. I'm so sorry."
"I believe you," said Joanna. Chapter 8. The police came and went. The paramedics did the same. Barry did not miss these moments at all. He was reminded of the time when Rick Carter had been killed by a person in a black costume. This time was different, though, as the manager of the Red Horse Inn had turned the gun onto himself. It appeared to everyone that Sylvia had been telling the truth. The manager, her boyfriend, who was named Robbie Watterson, he had been working at the Red Horse Inn for 8 years. Sylvia had told everyone that no one suspected that anything was wrong. But the more she talked, it appeared that he was dealing with a deteriorating mental state. Robbie Watterson had composed an elaborate set of pranks, envelopes with red dots on them which had been hidden around Frederick, Maryland. The game was for Barry, Joanna, and Martin to find them. It had all been a game. Barry didn't talk to Sylvia. Only Joanna gave her comfort, which surprised Barry, as her boyfriend, Watterson, had been the person who had abducted Joanna and left her in a dark room for 3 days. However, even Barry had to admit it wasn't Sylvia's fault. She seemed truthful about not knowing that Robbie Watterson had been planning the prank. Barry, Joanna, and Martin also gave statements to the police. Then they were free to go. Barry had even called the Jonestown Motel, and once he said that he would return at night, they agreed to let him keep his job. "Where will you go?" Barry asked Joanna. "You know me," she responded. "I'm a drifter. I didn't start out as one, but that's all I am now." "Where were you before?" Martin asked her. "Dover, Delaware," she answered. Shivers went through the spines of Barry and Martin. The nature and details of Robbie Watterson's hoax had been composed in a shockingly personal manner. "Where will you go now?" Barry kept asking. "Anywhere is fine." "Will you come and stay in Jonestown for a while?" Barry offered. "You've been there before. I'm at the Jonestown Motel, although it was called something different when we were there last." "It's as good as anywhere," she agreed. "If that's the case, I will have more driving ahead of me once I drop you two off," Martin chimed in, "and I'm not about to be a third wheel, so, Mr. Albert, Barry, I will request that you do the driving while I sleep in the back seat." The black Lincoln pulled out of the parking lot and onto the Golden Mile for a little, then headed toward the highway. Barry was using the GPS from Martin's phone, but Martin was already passed out in the back seat of the car, and his computer bag was his pillow. "It's been 5 years," Barry finally started. "Joanna, why did you leave? You didn't have to leave." "I told you," she answered. "I went to see Golly when he got out of jail. I guess the drifter in me was stronger then." "Do you remember all of those things you said?" Barry asked her. "You were going to stay with me in Williamsport. You were going to get a job at the shop down the street." "Yeah, I do," she said blankly. "Look, Barry, I'm so sorry. It's just one thing led to another." "So, is Golly Gallus still in the picture?" Barry asked in a calculating way. "No," Joanna returned. "He died 4 years ago." "Oh," Barry retorted. I didn't know. I'm sorry. What happened?" "About a year after he got out of jail, he died," she went on. "He got too drunk one night and drowned in the Atlantic Ocean. There's something kind of peaceful about it. I'm not up for drowning, but I'd like to die in the ocean. Sounds like fun, huh?" At that moment, Barry remembered the cold feelings he had when Joanna left. She had been an ex-lover of Robert Gallus, also known as Golly, and now she was talking about him as if he had been a TV show she had watched once. almost no regard for his life. Barry didn't know Gallus. He was trying to remember, but he couldn't even pinpoint a single time when he had heard Gallus speak. He was always in the background with Manny Inman and Joanna. "What about you?" Joanna asked Barry. "What have you been up to in the last 5 years? Aside from still living in motels, I've gathered." "I moved to Jonestown a little while ago," Barry shared. "My ex Blaze was in jail for a bit, and her and I got back together, then we split up again. About 2 years I met someone. I was engaged for 6 months. We were together for 6 months first. Then I asked her to marry me, and she said yes, and we split up about a year ago."
"Sorry to hear," Joanna consoled. "Why did you two break up?"
"She said I had no ambition," he shared again. "I guess she didn't want to be married to the facilities manager at the Jonestown Motel."
"Wow," Joanna muttered.
"Sometimes life sucks." Barry laughed. He knew that Joanna had a cold side, but now he was starting to remember her warm side.
"What was her name?"
Joanna asked him. "Amanda," Barry answered.
"Did you ever hear the song Amanda from the band Boston?"
Joanna chuckled. "Yeah, but I hate it now." Barry kept laughing.
"Too bad."
Joanna kept going.
"It's one of my favorites. It's okay, but you still have more than a feeling."
A warm feeling indeed came across Barry's body, and he knew exactly what it was. He hadn't felt this way in a long time. Chapter 9. The Black Lincoln had gone from the Red Horse Inn to the Jonestown Motel. Barry and Martin shook hands. They even added each other on Facebook. Barry found some things about Martin Gill to be annoying, but overall the good outweighed the bad. Joanna also gave Martin a quick hug goodbye, and she told him that she would do a phone interview later for his website. Before they entered the room, Joanna looked around and gazed at the night sky.
"I know I've been here before," she said, "but I don't remember it in this way."
"I do," Barry countered. In all seriousness, Barry had loved his time with Joanna in Jonestown. "I'm in the authorized personnel room," Barry showed off. "No room number, just an employee-only zone."
"Barry,"
Joanna stopped him.
"I want to be clear. I'm just coming here because you invited me. We haven't seen each other in 5 years, but I'm just going to go to sleep. Nothing else. I hope that is clear."
"It's fine," Barry lied. 2 hours went by and Barry couldn't sleep. Joanna was in bed next to him. She was leaning on his shoulder, and he felt both good and bad at the same time. His eyes were staring at the ceiling and looking around the room from time to time. Another weird day in the life of Barry Albert had gone by, and Barry slid out of bed and rose to his feet. Through the slit in the motel curtains, he saw the face of a man staring into the room. Once the man saw Barry standing, he kept staring. Barry walked slowly to the door, not to wake Joanna, and he grabbed the nearest shirt he could find and tossed it on. Then he walked out onto the concrete sidewalk in front of his room. "Excuse me, can I help you?" Barry asked. The man was about 2 inches taller than him, perhaps 5'10" or 5'11". He was a white male with streaks of gray in his hair, and he reminded Barry too much of Robbie Watterson. The main difference was that this man wore thick, dark-rimmed glasses. From the neck down, he wore all black, including gloves. "I thought I was going to have to wait all night," he spoke in a monotone. "What's going on?" Barry asked. "Why don't you have a seat, Barry?" he offered. The man motioned toward 2 white plastic motel chairs, which were not normally there. The man in black must have collected them earlier. Barry sat down. "Hey, look, I'll do the talking first," the stranger interrupted. "Did you have a busy day yesterday?" "Yeah, but—" "Let's get to the point," the stranger cut him off again. "You managed to find all of those phonies, but did you ever see the real thing?" "Who are you?" Barry asked. "Oh, what are you talking about? What's going on?" "Isn't it obvious?" The stranger mocked him and even threw his hands up in the air. "I'm the White Horse Killer." "No, no, 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 no," said Barry. "I am," he answered. "Well, sort of. You see, you, Barry Albert, know better than anyone. Some ignoramus named Emmanuel Inman is sitting in jail, pretending to be me. You and I both know that he didn't commit those crimes. He never even provided the answers to the cipher codes. All those idiots out there pretending to be me, you'd think it's flattering. It's not. They're taking credit for my work. Dumbasses. What's going on? Barry asked. Stop interrupting me, and I'll tell you, the stranger went on. Yeah, I'm the White Horse Killer. I killed those people. Men and women parked in cars. Horny little fuckers. Well, fuck 'em. That was like shooting fish in a barrel. But you and I both know that I never killed that man, Rick Carter. Emmanuel Inman has been convicted for that murder too, but it wasn't me. Rick Carter was killed by a group of people called the Satanic Network, Barry added. Sure, the stranger said again in a flat voice. Then this jackass, Robbie Watterson, comes into the news. The Red Horse Killer. What a fraud. Who would ever go out in such a stupid costume? What did you say, Satanic Network? He put their symbol on his costume like a cunt. What? Why? For what reason? That's not what the White Horse Killer was about. How did you know about the video? Barry asked. That wasn't released to the public. Ha, the man laughed. TrueCrimeGovernment.com. Martin, Barry spat out. He must have uploaded it back when we were still on the hotel Wi-Fi. So it seems, the stranger said. What do you want? Barry asked, as he was starting to take this individual more seriously. Lots of things, he answered. Firstly, I'm sick and tired of people pretending to be me. I'm sick and tired of having my legacy, my vision, my life's work being turned into these costumes and loud mouths. What's next? Is somebody gonna change the color again? Maybe next time they'll use spring green. Some failed poetry major trying to be the next Emmanuel Inman. Shit. When Inman was convicted, I felt like jumping for joy. You see, I was like, I got away with it. I fooled them. No one would ever look in my direction again. And no one has. No one ever came close to catching me. Well, perhaps that Martin Gill. He's got good instincts, but he will never get there. You're starting to sound like Rick Carter, said Barry. Rick Carter again, the stranger shouted. Ha! He was a math professor from some college in Massachusetts. He was the same as this Robbie Watterson. They don't have it in them to kill. They don't have it in them to take a human life. So what do? They pretend to be me. They are, or they were, old disgruntled men who have nothing better to do than pretend to be serial killers around people who don't know any better. Those men are pure cowards, and I am glad they are dead. I feel nothing for them. I mean, that's what I always feel. Nothing. When I killed those people before, I felt nothing. But I did feel something for me. It was like when you're a kid and you eat too many Skittles. You get all of that sugar and you're hyped up. And it only lasts for a while. And, I was done. I was done, Barry. I was done. I had created the White Horse Killer. I got away with it, but now, seeing all of these fuckers pretending to be me, to use my brilliance, to fuel their own boring lives, no. I still don't know what you want, said Barry. The White Horse is coming back, he laughed. Go ahead, tell the police. Tell Martin Gill. Tell everyone you know. They won't care. They think that Manny Inman was the White Horse Killer. Just earlier today you had this Red Horse debacle. No one is going to listen to another story about the White Horse Killer for quite some time. I will not tell you when I start again, but I will. I will not announce my crimes like I did before, but I'll be there. And you, Barry Albert, can catch me if you can. The stranger stood up and began to walk away. Barry couldn't believe this. So many times he had thought about the end of the White Horse Killer mystery, but he had known for years that Emmanuel Inman couldn't have been the killer. He had also doubted the stories of Rick Carter, and now some motormouth had arrived at his doorstep saying that he was the White Horse Killer. What does this mean? Barry asked. The stranger stopped in his tracks and he turned to face Barry. "Let's just say that I was inspired by this red horse knockoff," said the stranger. "You have to catch me, or else someone else dies." Barry couldn't hear any more. He didn't want to listen to any more. This had to stop. He rose from the white plastic chair and ran toward the stranger. He tried to tackle him, but the stranger pushed back. Barry formed his fingers into a fist and tried to throw a punch into the man's face. The stranger easily blocked it and began pounding his own fist into Barry's rib cage. Then Barry fell to the ground and his face collided with the black asphalt of the motel parking lot. The man began kicking Barry repeatedly in the midsection. He was grunting, but he wasn't making an enormous amount of noise. "It's good to know that a little bit of military training paid off," the stranger spoke in an out-of-breath voice. Then he lowered his body and delivered a single punch to Barry's head. Barry opened his eyes, and he gazed upon the darkness surrounding the parking lot at the Jonestown Motel. The man calling himself the White Horse Killer was gone. Barry had been right about Robbie Watterson. He had been a copycat. The stranger who had just beaten him unconscious was not a copycat, or so Barry thought anyway. That man was indeed the real White Horse Killer. Barry pulled himself to his feet. His head was throbbing, and he put his hand over his ribs. They felt even worse, but he didn't think anything was broken. He touched the side of his head and looked at his fingers. He didn't see any blood, but he expected that he would have a mark in the morning. Barry stumbled into the motel room. He flipped on a light switch and he realized that he was still dizzy from the fight. "Joanna!" he called out. Joanna rolled over in bed and made a noise. Then she tossed around for a second. "What's going on?" she asked. "Joanna, wake up," Barry requested. "What's going on?" she repeated. "He was here," said Barry. "What do you mean?" she kept asking. "Who was here?" "The White Horse Killer," Barry informed her. To be continued.